We've got the draft coming up, and with the draft coming up, people always want to say, hey, remember 2017? Remember when you were upset about Pettersson? Hey, remember? Yeah, I do remember. And the funny thing is, the videos on the channel of both the review of the 2017 first round and the live reaction stream are the biggest videos in the history of this channel. The video and the live stream combined got enough hits and generated enough revenue for one of our trips. I'm not making that up. And that live stream was really what kind of catapulted this channel into becoming my full-time job. At the time that the draft took place in 2017, it was not my full-time job. I was still working 40 hours a week in the shipping department, and things were stressful. Things were very, very stressful. And so I didn't devote the amount of time to the draft that I needed to. And in 2018, it kind of happened again, not with a Canucks draft pick, but with Joe Veleno dropping in the draft. So after that, Hockey Prospect, one of their head scouts, Brad Allen, reached out to me and said, hey, so you want to know some more about the draft? I know that's your weak spot on your channel. We'll help you out. So I said, fine. And over the last 2 years, through Hockey Prospect, through Elite Prospects as well, and through just going through scouting reports, I have a 300-plus page document on my computer for this year's draft from both Hockey Prospect and then the 300-page-plus document from Elite Prospects as well. I read up on prospects. I've got a list right now. I'm going to do it in 2 videos tomorrow of the top 37 draft picks as I see it. This is going to be a deep draft, so top 37. Am I going to be right? Nah. But, it's fun, and it's a more informed decision than I had in 2017. But what's interesting is there were a lot of people that were wrong. A lot of people. The difference is not everybody has a YouTube channel for it. So TSN's rankings were as follows. Hischier was ranked number 1. Patrick was number 2. Nolan Patrick was seen as being this fantastic two-way forward, and sadly, due to injury, his career's, been in a stalled state for the last year and a half. Heiskanen number 3, Makar number 4, and there's Gabriel Velardi at number 5. Velardi was seen as an excellent two-way forward. I've gone through the scouting reports today all over again to kind of remind myself why I still like Velardi. When I think about Cool Hockey's had a 40% off sale, which means that you can get a jersey from Cool Hockey if your team's out of the playoffs, get a custom stitched name and number on the back, and pay less than you would for a jersey regularly. So it's an excellent deal. I'm half tempted to get a Vilardi Kings because I still believe in the kid. He's played 10 games for the Kings. He had 7 points this year, and he dealt with a lot of injuries. And so if not for injury, I think he already would have been a regular in the NHL. Middlestad was number 6. Number 7 was Pettersson. Glass was 8. Rasmussen was 9, and Tippett was 10. And apparently, it was Judd that wanted Pettersson, and Benning kind of wanted Glass and had to be talked into it. He wanted Cody Glass in the lineup. Sports Illustrated / the Hockey News. So apparently the Hockey News site got taken over by Sports Illustrated. I don't know what's going on. All I know is that I get this notice from the Hockey News, hey, you got to renew your subscription. I already renewed it. And then when I click on the renew, it takes me to the Sports Illustrated site where it says click here to link your Hockey News subscription. So I click that and it doesn't go anywhere. So that tells me that it's going really well. I didn't even know Sports Illustrated and Hockey News had anything going on. That's how far out of the loop I am. But it explains why I haven't had a Hockey News issue in ages. Patrick, number 1 on their list, which I assume was the Hockey News one, just ported over to the Sports Illustrated site. Hischier, Vilardi at 3. They had Vilardi ahead of Heiskanen. Makar, Middlestad, Glass, Tippett. They had Pettersson at 9, and they had Michael Rasmussen at 10. On McKean's. Now, McKean's is a website that does a lot of discussion of draft picks and prospects, and their 2017 list is still visible. I couldn't find an Elite Prospects list from 2017. So McKean's had Patrick, Hischier, Heiskanen, Vilardi at 4, then Middlestad, Tippett, Makar, Glass, Vesalainen was number 9 on their list, and then Rasmussen number 10. They didn't have Pettersson in the top 10. Notice I'm wearing a Pettersson jersey. I've clearly become a fan of Elias Pettersson. And then Hockey Prospect, and this is why I partner with these guys, and this is why when I use notes in my prospect videos, I very often use the notes from their site. There are things that I use that I get from Elite Prospects. There are things I get from other sites as well. I put it all together, and then I do profiles on draft picks for all you fine people, in part because of what happened in 2017. And I don't want to see it happen again where it's just, oh, I don't know. And I'll come back to why that draft pick was one that bothered me at the time. So Hockey Prospect had Hischier at 1. That's what happened. They had Patrick at 2. That's what happened. Heiskanen at 3. Yes. Makar at 4. They had Pettersson at 5. And then Glass. And when I was writing this down, I thought, wait, did they just show the draft list? Because that's what Elite Prospects had. But no. They had Vilardi at 7, Mittelstadt at 8, Necas at 9, and Liljegren at 10. So they got the top 6 in order that year. This is one of the reasons why I use Hockey Prospect. I use Elite Prospects as well because they have information that other sites don't have. They actually have the NHL scouts information. So Hockey Prospect had Pettersson nailed. They were the only ones that had him at 5. They were it. Hockey Writers had a consensus, so this is all of the various lists thrown together, and here's what their overall list was. It was Nolan Patrick at 1. Right. Nolan Patrick was the number 1 rated prospect that year. Hischier was 2nd. Heiskanen 3rd. Vilardi was ranked number 4. Makar was ranked number 5, which is insane when we think about it, right? Mittelstadt at 6. Glass, and then Necas, and then Pettersson was 9th, right above Owen Tippett. So this is where that draft pick ranks in terms of surprises. We were all kind of surprised to see Pettersson at 5. I at the time thought, well, if he wanted Pettersson, he probably could have traded down to get him. And he might have been able to. But clearly, Judd Brackett saw something in Pettersson that others didn't. And so he got the Canucks to get him. And hopefully there's a voice of reason at a Canucks draft table in order to have that happen. Because keep in mind, if Benning, rumor has it that if Benning was left to his own devices, it would have been Cody Glass they drafted. And right now, people would be, chuckling at the Canucks draft pick of Cody Glass ahead of Pettersson. Because in 2016, they drafted Olli Juolevi. They drafted Juolevi at 5, and they drafted him ahead of Matthew Kaczuk. Now, in 2016, I had the channel, and I was very vocal about how I didn't like them passing on Kaczuk. We were coming out of this Sedin's era where they were seen as soft. The era before that was the Naslund era. Naslund was seen as soft. We came through the 80s where one of the main guys, their number 1 center, was Thomas Gradin, seen as soft, whether that's right or wrong. I felt like this is a team that's gone through numerous eras where they've had players who are perceived as soft, and I'm not saying that the Sedins are, because they're not, but that was a perception. I thought, it would be nice to see a North American feel with this team and a little bit of grit in there and a little bit of good two-way forward in there. And I thought Gabriel Velardi would have been a good pick. And considering they had passed on Kaczuk the year before, and already when we get to the 2017 draft, that looked like a mistake. Matthew Kaczuk looked like he was going to be a keeper for Calgary, and he is. Just imagine that Vegas series if the Canucks had Kaczuk on the ice against Vegas and had that in their top 6. How different that whole series could have gone. The year before they took Brock Besser. At the time of the draft, Besser had made his debut. I had seen one of those games. He played 9 games that year, 4 goals, 1 assist, 5 points. And in that, I felt he was the best pure shot that I thought the Canucks had had. I still think Brock Besser has one of, if not the best shot I've seen since Pavel Bure of any player in a Canucks uniform. So Besser was a hit at 23. Juolevi was a miss. But in 2014, they draft Virtanen at 6. Well, Nylander had passed by. Now, Nylander, of course, being Swedish, and of course, there's a lot of talk about him being soft. But Virtanen, at the stage that the draft takes place in 2017, had played 65 games with the Canucks and had 7 goals and 7 assists for 14 points. And really had the makings of potentially being a bust. Because we're 3 years out from the draft year, and maybe. And there are still those watching this right now that would say, Virtanen is a bust. Which is why in 2017, I would have said, okay, I'd like to see Vilardi because Besser was the keeper. Velardi's a good player down the middle. He's supposed to be a two-way center. We have Bo Horvat, who's a two-way center as well. You have Horvat, you have Vilardi down the middle. The Canucks could be great. Pettersson, in his prospect reports, it was simple. Not the fastest skater, good skater, not fantastic. He can play center, but he was projected as probably being a winger at the NHL level because he wasn't strong enough. So it was seen that he probably needed more time to develop. He needed to add weight. He needed to get a little faster. And so when the Canucks drafted him at 5, I thought, gee, you know, Vilardi's probably the more NHL ready of the two. So again, you know, it's easy to take that victory lap. The interesting thing is that at 13 in this draft, Suzuki was rated by hockey writers as number 13 overall. Cole Lind, who is a Canucks farmhand, was ranked 31st in the overall draft rankings that year. And of course, Lind, if you look at the Canucks standards, he's in terms of prospects, he's considered the B level. He could very well make it. It's still early enough in his career. He could definitely make it to the NHL. But is he a top 6 forward? Probably not. He's probably a bottom 6 guy should he get there. But it is interesting. It is interesting, of course, that it's only been 3 years, and we can already look at this list and say, well, Patrick, due to injury, can be considered somewhat of a bust right now, and hopefully he comes back and he's healthy for Philadelphia, and he resumes his career and becomes the player he was envisioned to be when he was drafted. He's still young enough to do that. Casey Mittelstadt, the odds are at this stage with how things have gone in Buffalo, either he moves somewhere else and comes through, or maybe that's done. And then from there on, there's a lot of these guys we're not sure with yet. And again, with Vilardi, he came up at the end of the year, and he was part of the reason that LA was so darn good down the stretch, where they won so many games in a row. And they'd won 11 out of 13, some ridiculous number anyways. And a big part of that was adding Vilardi down the middle to their top 6 just solidifies things for the Kings. So I still like Gabriel Velardi. I obviously am a fan of Pettersson. I've got 2 Pettersson jerseys currently. I've got the blue one. I've got the black one. Eventually I'll end up with a white one too, because why not? And then through the Cool Hockey sale, I managed to snag one or two that people are going to find it really entertaining when they see what I got, because I didn't go with just the standard. I thought I could get the standard names, but I want to get something a little different. So yeah, there's a couple that are a little different, but yeah. So the 2017 draft, again, did I get it wrong? Yes, but that's part of the reason why I put so much work into the draft now. This is why when we come up to the draft, I've got all these names written down in order. I went through what team I think they're going to be good with, and then I've got notes on every single player too. This is why I couldn't do the videos today. Notes on every single player from NHL scouts on the strength and the weakness, the primary strength and weakness I've seen on all 37 players that I'll profile in tomorrow's. I'm going to do it over 2 videos, one with the top 20 and then one for 21 through 37. So there you go. Thank you guys so much for all your support between 2017 and now, taking the channel from where it was 3 years ago, which is nowhere near where it is now. But that live stream and that video, the Pettersson, what that did was it allowed me the freedom to end up making this my primary source of income and making this my job. And I take my job very seriously, which is why now I make sure that I have a more learned experience when it comes to the draft. And again, this shows why Hockey Prospect is one that I look at with their draft rankings. I say, okay, they're usually pretty close. The thing is, this year, Elite Prospects, they released their prospect book later, and they have a little bit of an advantage in that there has been some hockey getting played overseas, and so you get a little bit better chance to see who's actually progressing towards being an excellent NHLer of the ones that are playing right now. Lucas Raymond stands out as a guy that they're really, really high on. They've got him in the top 3. So I had to look at some of that today, and that's why I didn't get that one done. But here's this. Thank you guys so much for all your support, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. It is amazing that I can be here 3 years later. I have this set now. Everything's different. And I have you guys to thank for that. I will talk to you again soon.